when this whole thing went down, I was like, I'm not going to spend the next 4 years angry. I'm not going to do it.
Me either.
You know, I can't. That's not conducive to me, to my wife, to my kids. Other people are like, you have to rage. I'm like, we raged hard, and
that's not the way.
And it hasn't changed, and it hasn't helped, and we've been, if anything, gaslit by the people that we rage for.
Tell us about a moment where you wish you would have said something and you didn't. There's nothing better than this. Say what you mean. 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 What's up, everybody? Thank you for coming back to another episode of Say What You Mean, where people stop by to share stories in moments where they wish they would have said something and they didn't. I can't tell you how many interesting stories we've heard, some deep ones. People have cried, people have laughed, or made us laugh. There's little things that make people say, that had people staring for days, and here we are yet again with another episode. And I start every episode with my own. So I have a friend who is a very talented person in this business, who also has power and opportunities at their fingertips, is always telling me how talented I am, and has never asked me to come in for one audition for their projects. And so I just want to say this as a reminder of people who are always talking about how their communities are not represented, how there's no solidarity in our business, and how we don't show up for one another. It starts with you. When I have opportunities, I create platforms and I show up for other people. And I used to be embarrassed to say, why doesn't my friend who says I'm so talented not show up for me? Not anymore. So here I'm saying to all of my friends that are always telling me how talented I am, people who are always calling me to tell me how I belong in certain spaces, why don't you start with your platform, and why don't you create an opportunity instead of telling me how everybody else should? All right, onward and forward. The person sitting across from me was nodding their head throughout the entire time because they know exactly what I'm talking about. He is a very talented actor. And I first came across him when I saw On My Block because I loved that show. I was the speech and debate president of from the time I was in middle school till I graduated from high school. So it was so refreshing to see nerds in the hood, because we do exist. And I love that show so much. Also, young Dario, Blaze to the Future. But what's ahead is going to be so much more. So please welcome Julio Macias to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you? How you doing?
You know, like we were saying, the grind, auditioning. I feel like a lot of our business is going out, but it's not going out. It's networking and talking with people. So I feel in a very interesting limbo where I am recognized enough to be like the poster kid for representation. Like I get invited to everything, right?
Yeah.
But I haven't really like worked on something, mainstream in like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
But I'm constantly getting invited, and you're following, and this and that, and da. And again, like you're saying, I love you in this, I love you in that. You could do this, you could do that, you could right here, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like all of the opportunities that I've had lately or in the past 2 years have been almost self-got, right?
That's right.
I've gone to this producer, our mutual friend Jolene, calling me up, and it's like, hey, can we skip all the things? Can you just do this movie? I was like, yeah, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And then also circling back to what I started doing, which was producing before I got into acting. I was doing music videos and whatnot. And I think I've been on enough sets now where my confidence has like boosted to, if these people are doing it, then I can do it.
That's right.
And I could probably do it better.
That's right.
or at least with my own take, right?
Yeah.
Competitively.
I mean, you are cursed with an aesthetic that is very distracting because you're a very attractive person, right? And I have to hear it all the time. And you know how I adore you, and I see you in a very specific way, like family.
Yeah.
But but you're also a very talented actor, right? And so, I mean, I remember when I saw you on my blog, I was like, does he really have those tattoos on his face? Like I didn't know. And then I saw you, and then I was like, man, like you really sold it. I think that we're in a very interesting space now where Latinidad in Hollywood has lost its mind with us, right? You got to be white and to make a movie about us for us to be recognized.
Yep.
And it's crazy. How do you feel about the way you've shown up in representation wise? Because you have an array of roles that you've played.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. My friend's brand, Brown and Proud, and I wear it now a lot. It was a weird full circle moment for me where my parents, I was born in Mexico City, and my parents grew up in this idea of hierarchies, right? Where my mom's family were lawyers, and then my dad's family were entertainment adjacent. And so they were kind of looked like they were offset, but then they started making a lot of money. And then my dad kind of took on this idea of creating this dubbing empire for himself. And he bought himself into this New York class and these higher classes. And so I never considered myself, I guess, brown, right? I was Mexican, but I knew I wasn't white, but it wasn't like, I don't know where I fit, right? And when I came to the United States, it was, as a kid, at 8 years old, it wasn't so blatant, right? And I was just another Hispanic kid. And then I moved to Miami, and there was enough of us there where I didn't see anything, right? Moving back to California, years of doing production, and now looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why I only got to do Latino music videos, because that's how they saw me, right? I booked on my block. I told my mom what it was, and she's like, "You're gonna be playing a cholo?"
Oh,
But like, why? And I was like, because it's a great role and it's so interesting, this and that. And she had this like, I'm proud of you, pero mijo.
yeah.
Right?
Right.
And I decided to transform myself in as respectful as the ways I possibly could. I did as much history research as I can. I lived adjacent to that, but not in it. And so I made sure that I was historically informed with everything, right? But what I wasn't ready for was how I was treated on the street before anybody knew who I was. So shaved head, a little bit bigger, facial hair as I had it. I went from being like a cute boy that, oh, look at this Latino kid, to like almost like a threat, people moving out of the way, getting stopped constantly, right? When I was driving, or if I was walking, I used to live on Cahuenga, so I was walking, doing lines for another audition. And a cop, I remember clearly, it was a motorcycle cop, did a U-turn. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" It's like, "Oh, I'm just reading my lines." And when I spoke the way that I speak, because I learned how to speak with the Disney Channel, so I have a Disney Channel accent. They're like, break a leg on your audition, right? And then they like took off. But there was this weird like anger that I started feeling that first year before On My Block came out, where I was like, this is a character that I put on that I could take off this costume anytime I want.
That's right.
But someone that naturally presents this way, for no other reason that that's how they feel comfortable, that they get pushed, and now they are put in this like pit bull category, right? Like, if pushed, a Labrador can be just as dangerous as any other dog, but because of the appearance of a Rottweiler or a pit bull or something like that, suddenly you are now a threat to society, right? And that pushed me into anger, which pushed me into this and that and this and all these other things, until I came full circle around, where it's like, it almost doesn't matter how I perceive myself, especially if I'm going to be living in this country. In this country, I am a brown man.
That's right.
And if I'm perceived as such, then I'm going to be the highest caliber brown man that I can be, right? That's within my family, within my career, within my profession, within my own health. And when my friend approached me about like this brand, Brown and Proud, I was like, it was a little jarring when I first put it on, but then I keep wearing it, and people start asking me, about the brand, and now it's become almost like a personal quest to elevate that statement, right? And when I'm confronted about it, it's usually, much whiter people when they say like, what if I wore a hat that said like white power? Is like, I didn't say brown supremacy. I didn't say
No,
I didn't say I'm taking over anything. I'm just saying that I'm proud to be what I'm associated with in this country. And they're like, oh, well, when you put it like that, but it's interesting that you took it to
supremacy.
Right?
Yeah, they have some really good quality products too. That's the thing, like, because so people put together their stuff, but that hat is like really good. I have a T-shirt that's really good quality. I could feel that the rage in the character in On My Block, and you did a really good job. Frankie Quinones was on the show, and he talked about Cholo culture because he has brought an awareness to it, humanizing it in this fool. And I think it's important to like really, those are human beings. So there's a cultural aspect to that. Everything isn't gang culture.
Right.
But even the gang culture, like those are still human beings.
Yeah, the history of how these again, I'm not condoning or supporting violence or human trafficking or
Of course.
anything like that, but they were essentially at one point created for community protection. At least here in Los Angeles, right? There was a time where even though the Spanish were the first oppressors of the land. No, but when they first came here and then they settled this area and they stayed here and were the same way that they displaced the original inhabitants, they were then later displaced themselves and put into smaller and smaller communities. They started patrolling themselves because they knew that no one else would, right?
That's right.
And that started evolving, and the younger people came in, and usually younger people come in with a little bit more aspiration, a little bit more rage, a little bit more anger, and generation after generation, it becomes this clandestine situation, right? And then, however you want to call it, whether it's government psyops or actual drug kingpins taking advantage of a situation where like, well, you already got the muscle on the street, I got the product, do you want to just move it for me, and then you'll have a little bit extra this and that. And so I always looked at what Oscar was doing as a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to protect his neighborhood, and this is the only way he knew how to and saw, right?
Yeah.
And so I try to bring that, and I thought maybe that's why he's angry. He doesn't want to be doing all this other stuff, but he has to, right? And that anger is a useful tool.
How much of an impact did playing that role have on your life? Because that show just blew up. It became
huge. Yeah, it set me up for my 20s and the beginning of my career. It's obviously, like I said, it put me on a place where I might not be cast in everything, but I get invited to everything.
Yeah.
So that's a cool little thing. But then it's also interesting to see how it's like, I'm going to be around for a very long time, and I feel like I'm going to do a lot of great things. But if my ticket ends tomorrow, it's cool to think or know that I did something that it seems to be have the chance to stand the test of time.
It will.
Like that character in that time in that show, Diego, who played Caesar on my block, he does these meet and greets, and he's invited me to a couple. And years after the show's done, like, people line up around the corner, like 2,000-3,000 people, and they come up and they all like, you don't know what your character did for this and da 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 da. And then like, one person was like, I showed, and this is like, this girl's a kid, but she's like, I showed my kids this. And I'm like, first of all, you're a kid. And second, like now it's passing the generations, and then they're going to grow up watching me do that character. And then, even if I'm an old man, like that show will continue in that way, and that character will hopefully stand the test of time. So that's a really cool feeling that I have. Or when I was a kid, I wanted to be part of film. I wanted to be part of this industry. And I created a footprint, and that's really cool for me spiritually.
I love it. If you could think about a time where you wish you would have said something and you didn't,
Yeah.
what would it be?
2 weeks ago, I was, where was I going? I was going to meet a friend, and I stopped at a grocery store, and I'm literally getting a bottle of water. And this woman goes in front of me, and she's paying for her thing. And then this other older woman, both of them white women, and she runs up and she says, "Hey, are you? Can I curse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you the person that's parked in front or behind me?" And this woman didn't respond. "You are. You're that Russian. You need to move your car." And then she, like, the other woman is completely ignoring her, and then she's like, "I need to speak to the manager. Call the police." And then she starts telling the manager to call the police because this person. And it was this weird thing where it's like, okay, this woman didn't park her car. She just left it behind someone who had like rightfully parked in the right spot. But the attitude of which this woman came and says, you're Russian, right? How about you go back to Russia, right? With this like, and
White on white crime. Like,
yo,
no.
it was crazy. Because we hear, it's really taken that step where it's before it's like, oh, go back to your country was such a thing like towards us, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like
Everybody go back.
Right? And I was driving, and I was like, I should have said like,
What would you have said?
"Look, I'm sure that you're frustrated because she shouldn't have parked there, but that's not how we speak to people."
Oh, you so nice.
I am. And that's what bothered me. Not that this woman had the right to just like park her car like asshole, but that this other woman would come in with such anger, like, "I'm going to throw you in jail and out of my country because you inconvenienced me for 5 minutes," right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that was like a weird, like, it wasn't my place, but I should have said, that's not how we speak to people.
It's interesting though, because when you see white people doing it to other white people, we've reached another level. Like we are in the upside down at this point.
We're in deep waters right now.
Yeah. Because if you and like a lot of these people like that, worship Putin, whatever that you see on social media. But if you are saying to a Russian person, right, go back to your country, I don't know where we are anymore because most white people, all the white people that are in America are descendants of Europeans. So it's like, y'all breaking off into regions now? Like,
right. Yeah, exactly. And it's an interesting conversation to have, because when you break down the thought experiment of, okay, like, my family came here from France 100 years ago. I was like, okay, it's one grandparent away, right?
Not that long ago.
Yeah. Are you going to go back to France? Because Europe is having its own identity crisis of, I see, my wife sends me things on like, oh, that you can buy a Italian villa for like
$1.
Yeah, 100, and they need people to come and repopulate. At the same time, they're stopping everyone from North Africa from coming in.
Yep.
So they have a declining population, but they only want select people to come in and repopulate the area, right? So, yeah, it's interesting.
They should be able to work something out. Like, it's some people here that should go.
An exchange program, right?
Yeah.
Like, go back and forth. I don't know.
It's crazy. I feel sometimes when I try my best to stay away from it, like reading about it, because it does affect me. But I also don't want to be engaged in the thought at that thought level, because I feel like I'm going backwards. Like, I don't want to participate in it to that degree, because I feel like I am not operating at my highest level. And it's kind of scary to see, because a lot of it is really like ignorance, but like extreme ignorance. But our emotions can't help but to be involved when we hear people.
It's crazy. A friend of mine, Donatiu, who's just in Kiss of the Spider Woman. They did this this thing on I think it was I saw it on TikTok, but they were talking about how that they're now experiencing grief with everything that's going on, right? And then he's always been like fight fire with fire, and in this video they go, well, fight fire with water, and water can still be forceful, and this idea of, I think, with everything that's going on, we yes, there is a better side, but both sides are guided and controlled by power, right?
Yep. Money.
So it's tough to just stand against one thing when really it's finding the humanity, and find, like, when this whole thing went down, I was like, I'm not gonna spend the next 4 years angry. I'm not gonna do it.
Me either.
I can't. That's not conducive to me, to my wife, to my kids. Other people are like, you have to rage. I'm like, we raged hard, and
that's not the way.
that's not the way, and it hasn't changed, and it hasn't helped, and we've been, if anything, gaslit by the people that we rage for,
Yeah.
right? So it really does come down to, like, I'm not gonna run for office. I can't change that, but maybe I can make a movie
Yeah.
that's entertaining and fun and shows, brown love, and is conducive to shaping the minds and the souls of the next generation to come, and say, maybe some kid in 20 years watches something that I do, and that person runs for office, and that person does something, right? But I can't do that if I'm just pissed off all the time.
Yeah, it's not gonna do. Plus, I think artists, a lot of artists, their advocacy, their activism is expressed through their art, and a lot of times we forget that, right? And then we get in the way of the real activists, the people who do this every single day.
Right.
And then we book a job, and then we're like, all right, y'all, see you back next year when we march. But it's because that's not what we do. What we do is art, and as a stand-up comedian, we stand up, and we, as making movies. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of art that has made far more impact than talking into a camera on Instagram. And listen, I do that too. Like, when I can't take it anymore and I have to say something, I will. But I just don't know that that's not where my activism is going to have the most power. Like, I was looking at a video, a movie that I made in 2007. That was a movie about Latinos and Black people getting along, which I've been doing. It's been in my stand-up, and I've been talking about it. It's not something that came along when people started saying Afro-Latino or solidarity. It's just been who I am my whole life. And so I feel like, I did this. I've been doing this. I don't need to get in the way of the actual activist.
100%. Yeah.
And I think you do that too, which is, On My Block was revolutionary in its own way. It made statements about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And the writers were gracious enough to see who we were as performers, and started guiding our characters through, our personalities, and what we could bring and what we could do. Because, Spooky wasn't supposed to end up the way he did, right? But then they trusted me to do something else.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
And that was really cool.
It was sweet to see those moments in Spooky, and Jess broke out being so funny.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I really love the show. I love Emilio. Emilio is familia. Okay, we have a segment on the show called Shoulda Kept That. So I'm going to read a story that people send in.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you what someone says, and you tell me if they should have said it or they should have kept it.
Okay.
My friend, which I think is like in your world right now, my friend Steve and I both have kids at the same school. We're both members of the PTA. Elections are running now, and the position of president has opened up. I decided to run. I had no idea that Steve was running also. Steve told me that he was running finally, but I didn't know. And I said, you know, may the best man win. He asked me why I kept running after I knew that he was running. And I told him that I believe that I'm the best man for the job. He got big mad, but I won.
Yeah.
Should he have said, I think I'm the best man for the job?
100%. Yeah, you should have said that. Yeah.
To his friend?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And maybe that's just because of the world that, you know, I inhabit right now, which is so supportive and competitive at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that, and I can only speak for myself, but like, I think that Latino men are getting a lot more shots than we have before.
Yep.
I also feel that the community of Latino men that are getting the shots are all friends.
Yeah.
We all know each other. We all send each other like, hey, did you get this audition? Yo, you need to read for this. Hey, did you hear that this person got
that's
them?
great.
Yo, we should tell them congratulations, right? That's the conversation that we're
Y'all need to tell the bitches to do that. I'm terrible.
Jess says the same thing.
No, Jess and I, we meet. She's coming tomorrow. Like
Yeah.
she and I meet at a very specific place we both aware.
And so, I think that we are very much like, hey, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. And we've heard like, oh, I remember when we all auditioned for Cheetos, right? And then Jesse said something at the premiere where he's like, he read the things like, I know that a lot of my fellow friends are auditioning, but when I read this, I was like, this is mine. Sorry, guys. You can catch the next one, right?
Yeah,
but we were all like, yeah, you did it. You got it, right? And we understood that he was the best person for that job.
And he did a great job.
And he did a great job. So, yeah, at least in my group, in my profession, definitely speak when you think that you can do the thing the best.
Okay, flexing. All right, so this segment is called Say It With Your Chest, and this is like my lightning round.
Okay.
And you tell me, you just answer. Smash or pass, hiking dates.
Smash.
Okay. Would you rather the ocean or the pool?
Ocean.
How old were you when you went to your first concert?
11.
Who was it?
You too?
Okay. Did somebody expect it to be, what's his name? Vicente Fernandez.
I guess if you count that, somebody at you at a restaurant when I was 2, right?
I know. Fight or flight, 7 snapping turtles.
Fight.
Oh, you fighting the turtles?
I'm fighting the
Yo,
turtles.
I'm so happy. Everybody's been fleeting. They don't want to fight. I love it. Roy did not want to fight 2 flying monkeys. If you could say anything to your favorite teacher, what would it be?
Thank you for giving me that shot on stage.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, what's the name of the teacher?
So Miss Silverio, she let me play, or she gave me the opportunity to play Masterson in Guys and Dolls in high school. And that was like the first like, oh, okay.
I like this.
I always loved film and television and creating. I just didn't know where I fit in all of it. Like I knew that I can write, but I'm not a writer. I don't have and it's a necessary ego, but I don't have the necessary ego to be a director. I think the director needs to have a very strong point of view, even if he or they or she is wrong. She needs to steer the ship. I'm way too collaborative. I'm like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? It's like, Doug, you're the director. You got to know. Production as a producer, collaboration works better. So I think that works. But at the time when I got there, I was like, oh, I could do this. I can do this on film. Right. Yeah. So thank you to her.
I love it. I love to hear the shout outs to the teachers because everybody has one.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you were able to make this May
Yeah,
Monday.
this is awesome.
Yeah, you are a bright light, and you are so much more than how you look. And being a woman who's since we've peaked at puberty have been objectified, which is something that happens to women. It's nice to see that some men experience it too, because it gives them a strong sense of empathy towards women. But I think you're so talented, and I'm so excited to see where your career is going to go, because I know that your soul is good,
Thank you.
And it's always a pleasure for me to be in your presence. So tell everybody what they can look forward to from you and how they can find you. Other than being at all the hottest events
at all the events. No, you can find me pretty much just on Instagram at Julio Macias. And I have 3 movies that I shot in the last 2 years that should be coming out hopefully this fall. We're waiting to hear back from Cannes for one of them.
Nice. Cannes is in June. Yes, coming up.
So that was a smaller film, 3 Years Gone, directed by John Gutierrez, about veteran PTSD, but it's hidden as a psychological horror of a dad and a daughter going through a road trip. I'm excited about that.
That sounds good. I like that.
That's cool.
So it's Macias.
Macias.
But we were talking about that because we can't put the accents, the ñes in our stuff, and so people don't know the pronunciation of
Julio
our name.
Macias. Yeah.
Macias. Okay.
Also, I love Julio. I say it's like, hey, what's your name? Julio. I'm sorry, Julio. Oh, Julio. I'm like, I said the same name. What's it?
Yes. Oh no, trust me. Aida, Adia. It's been Aida. I allow people to call me that for a long time because I just gave up.
Well,
right.
My mother's name is Aida,
so you know how to say my name.
I know.
But both of my grandmothers were Aida. So I was like, then they know who's the different person. But then my grandmother, she pulled me to the side and she said, "Ese es mi nombre. Tu nombre no es Aida." And I was like, I'm gonna stop. And then she passed away, and then I've been like insisting on it. But so many people have been calling me Aida for so long that I felt like, you feel it's such a hard thing to be here.
And Julio, like when I first moved here, Julio became like the thing after on my block, and it's never in a mean way, but I'm Julio. And I say it with my chest, and now it just comes out naturally like that. Because it's like no, my parents didn't name me Julio. They named me Julio.
Julio. Yeah, that's right. Aida, tu madre. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here. We want to invite you to follow us on social media at SWYM Pod on all social media platforms. If you are listening, please hit the subscribe button if you're on Spotify or Apple. If you are watching, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to give us your rating and your review. And we will see you next time on Say What You Mean.